It's a big day, isn't it? And it's going to be a big couple of days. In fact, over the next 2 days, the remaining 4 quarterfinalists will be decided in the UEFA Champions League. Now, 4 of the big hitters are already through. Let's recap. Paris Saint-Germain, courtesy of a couple goals by Kylian Mbappe, registered a 2-1 win on the night and 4-1 in aggregate over Real Sociedad. Bayern Munich overturned the 1-goal deficit midway over Lazio and recorded a 3-0 win inside the Allianz Arena to win 3-1 on aggregate. Harry Kane with a couple of goals in there as well. Real Madrid entered their home leg with a 1-0 advantage over RB Leipzig and drew the second leg 1-1, enough for them to go through 2-1 in aggregate, while the defending champions Manchester City had the easiest route. They replicated the 3-1 win in the first leg to win 6-2 on aggregate over Copenhagen. As far as the matches today, 2 close ones. Barcelona and Napoli are locked at 1-1 heading into the second leg at Camp Nou, while Arsenal tried to overturn the 1-goal deficit when they host Porto at the Emirates, or as we should say, the Arsenal Stadium, since the name isn't being recognized by UEFA in these competitions, but that's another discussion altogether. Thanks for joining our coverage here in our studios in Kingston, Jamaica. My name is Donald Oliver. Members of the A-team are here. Eric Rademacher is in studio with me. He's the founder of the Kingston Football Academy. There he is. And right beside him is our local resident analyst, Juan Leger Williams. There you go. And on Zoom, Juan Arango, our chief South American football correspondent. Well, let's talk about what's happened so far in terms of the matches that have taken place. Now, I reckon, gentlemen, that Bayern Munich were pretty much on the edge, but it was Real Madrid who managed to barely go through in the end. A little bit surprised with that, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you expect them to somewhat be comfortable in taking that win, or at least, you know, go to the next round. But I think they were nervous more than that they're used to usually. But as typical Real Madrid, at the end of the whistle, they still advance. So I think they'll be happy with not using too much energy, but still got an advance.
What do you read from the results, Leger?
I don't read too much into it. As Eric said, it's Real Madrid. They know how to get the result in the end, and they did that. Although I think that RB Leipzig game, especially the second leg, even the first leg as well, I think showed up a couple of weaknesses in their team, especially in how they handle being pinned back a lot. So it's going to be interesting to see how they cope for the rest of the tournament, the rest of their league season as well, knowing that teams have seen that weakness in them. But as Eric said again, it's Real Madrid. They'll sort it out.
The favourites pretty much went through, Juan Arango. You believe that?
Yeah, on paper, yes, and on the pitch as well. I mean, that's really the reality of it all, that at this stage, you start to see the cream really rising to the top, just to kind of steal a very trite phrase there. And maybe today the question is, will that trend continue, especially with the opposition that is being put up against the quote-unquote favorites that would be, I guess, Arsenal in this particular case and Barcelona over in Spain?
All right, so let's get into the matter at hand. About today, a lot of eyes will be on London. It's going to be an intriguing battle over there. It really was an intense showing over there. Arsenal and Porto in that first leg, where a solitary goal decided the fixture in Portugal.
Gabriel, there was a chance. Galeno is just wide-eyed, blinking, wondering quite what happened there and how that didn't end up in the back of the net. They're still hopeful that just maybe a goal-scoring opportunity might fall their team's way. Sent forward by Otavio, nicely done. And the shot into the back of the net with the last kick of the game. Galeno brings the moment of magic. And the Dragão shakes to its very foundations with excitement. Porto will have the lead that they so desired to take to North London.
All right, so we're looking ahead to that matchup. It's going to be a big one. I should also mention, before I'm getting kicked out of here, the ray of sunshine in the studio as well, Mariah Ramarak, and of course she'll be having all the facts for you as we look ahead to the two matches. How could I have forgotten Mariah? I mean, she's just outstanding over there, but yet it just slipped to my mind. Anyway, let's go straight into the discussion, gentlemen. Leger, I know that you're Arsenal friendly. What disappointed you about that first leg in particular?
We didn't assert our dominance. Excuse me.
Or dominance?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't want to say we too much. It's going to slip out occasionally, but that Arsenal.
Well, we are going to Paris later in the year, so you can improve the French. But sure, continue.
Yeah, Arsenal didn't assert their dominance. I do think that they are the better team. They should have proved that in that game. But I think mentally, Porto came with the mind games. It worked pretty well. Immediately saw that Arsenal, after these players haven't played in a Champions League knockout game, and I think that showed early on when Rice got that yellow card. It kind of pinned us back a bit, you know, our main ball winner losing that ability to ball win as aggressively as he usually does. So I think that pinned us back a bit, or pinned back Arsenal a bit, but I do think that the team should have done a bit better in terms of managing their emotions, and that's something that we're going to call upon. The team is going to call upon today, and I do think that they're going to put on a better showing today, especially if an early goal is scored.
Eric, I'd like to know your thoughts on the matter, because since that time, of course, they've been on a winning run, and then they went back into a mode where they just couldn't penetrate in their English Premier League game recently over Brentford. So what kind of Arsenal are you reading here?
I mean, to get back to the previous match, as Ledge kind of saying he felt somewhat that they were good, better than maybe we would expect, seeing that they lost 1-0. But I think if you look at Porto's game plan, they have no problem having Arsenal be comfortable on the ball as long as they don't create anything with it. And last match, it was the first time, I think, in 2 years that Arsenal had 0 shots for an entire match. So I think if you look at Porto and they evaluate that first match, they would say it went exactly as planned. They want Arsenal to get, as you say, a little bit uncomfortable from the beginning, get that yellow card over there, get on their nerves by delaying the play, slowing it down. And I expect Porto to say, well, that plan that worked, we now have a 1-0 lead, we're going to play a similar plan. And I think Arsenal is going to struggle breaking that down, as we saw somewhat similar with Brentford, even though they created a lot more chances in that match. I think Porto has somewhat of a higher quality when they play that compact game.
Is that true, Juan? Do you think that Porto, they have the higher quality here? I mean, Arsenal, they're trying to be the heavyweights, or one of the heavyweights in Europe. It's going to take some doing, mind you. But your thoughts as to whether they're actually vulnerable today?
Someone cover Leger's ears so I can actually say what I have to say. Okay, we got to stop the England love here a little bit, because today there's a team on the pitch that does have pedigree in this competition. It's not Arsenal, because Porto at least have won a Champions League. Porto, or at least Arsenal, have never even, well, relatively come close to it, but that's about it. When it comes to a team, if we go back in the last few years, that have been able to come out with a very slight advantage and go away from home and get a result, it's been Porto at this stage of the season. Let's start looking back and start making, start making the gears click a little bit in terms of what's been going on. Are they the better team? No, they're not. On paper, yes, Arsenal is a much better team. But today, to me, the most intriguing factor is going to be the Jorginho factor in the middle alongside Declan Rice. To me, that's going to be the difference for Arsenal if they can start making more in terms of breaking lines, in terms of trying to go more at the defense a little bit more, creating better opportunities than they did the last time around. To me, that's where the difference is going to be, especially down that left-hand side, where you don't see a lot of creation. You haven't seen a lot of creation in recent weeks. So, again, when you're facing a team that really has a true pedigree in this competition, the stakes do change a little bit.
Leger, I'm going to give you an opportunity to hit back, but I'm going to lob something to you in your favor, right? Because I do have one, Kai Havertz. He has Champions League pedigree. He's won a Champions League literally from his boot with Chelsea. A lot of individuals, a lot of Arsenal fans would have questioned his worth at the beginning of the season, even before he actually kicked a ball, as to whether he was necessary in this Arsenal squad. But what are your thoughts on him, especially his form in recent times?
Yeah, I think with the team being much more comfortable, especially in terms of midfield, the team has been developing really well in terms of build-up as well, so it has reduced his impact or need to have an impact there, so it has thrusted him further forward, and that's where he's looked most comfortable. Has scored in 4 consecutive Premier League games now, so I was also critical of the signing in terms of the price, but I could always see what Mikel Arteta wanted in terms of his duel winning, his ability to score important goals, and you know, one mentioned Jorginho as well. That's another Champions League winner that will be on the pitch for Arsenal today. So pedigree is very important, but in terms of recent pedigree, I think Arsenal has the players who have that in their favour as opposed to Porto.
Staying on Havertz, how did Arteta want to use him? Because I figured that he was the type of player that wanted to come deep to collect the ball from the midfield, but Leger hinted at it a little bit earlier that he's playing more further up the field, right into the box.
I'm still wondering what was the plan with him when they actually got him. Because we see, I think, during the season he has found a way for the team to work with him, with that more even interchanging role as a striker with Ødegaard and some movement there. But I really still think if in the beginning of the season they would have gotten a top striker, an actual striker, they would not have gone into the plan that they have right now. And yes, it's working out now the way it's working out, but I don't think it was the initial plan. I think it's Arteta that found a way, realizing what can work with the players that they have right now.
And just before we go to Mariah, who do you think could be the difference maker for Arsenal here?
I already mentioned it, to me, Jorginho. To me, Jorginho and the depth that he does offer in terms of that, and his association alongside Declan Rice. One thing that Leger did forget to mention is that Pepe has more Champions League titles than all of London put together.
You know, speaking of which, I'm sure Mara will be giving us the negative facts on Arsenal failing at this stage so many times. And the question is, though, and we speak about the mentality of this Arsenal team, will it affect this current crop? Mara?
Yeah, well, you're on point, Donald, but I'm just here to bring the numbers. So, Arsenal have been knocked out of 9 of their 10 UEFA Champions League knockout ties when losing the first leg. Though, there's that one exception. That exception came against Porto in the 09-10 season at this same stage when they lost 2-1 away before winning 5-0 at the Emirates. Well, what do the numbers say about Porto? What's for sure is that they have an opportunity to reach the last 8 for the first time since the 2020-21 season, though they have a mixed record when defending the leagues in Champions League knockout ties. So Porto have progressed from 3 of their previous 6 ties when winning the first leg, and they have never won both legs of a knockout tie. So Donald, the question for you, can Porto change this and win both legs of a knockout tie for a change?
Why does she keep doing this? Why is she asking me?
We have back 3 to you, Donald.
I don't get it. I'm not the biggest Arsenal fan. But then again, who is? Sorry, Leger is here. But it's going to be a dicey battle. And I figured that because you're playing at Arsenal's home stadium, you have to give them the advantage. I reckon that they've actually improved since last season, and I suppose that they will come to the fore again, even though it's in Europe. But what can Porto do, Eric? I want to know your thoughts on the matter because they played a very disciplined game in that first leg, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think that's similar that we're going to see today as well. They're very, as mentioned before, the compactness and the discipline that they have along with that, along with some experienced players that can slow down the game at the right moments. Because Arsenal is a team that once they have that momentum, once they start moving the ball and finding players, finding space, they're going to create chances. So you want to have that team that is compact, realizing we can't do this for 90 minutes, so we have to find ways to sometimes slow it down, have a counter-attack, and I think they do have some of the players that can actually be dangerous still on the counter-attack. So I think it's a game plan that Porto doesn't mind playing, that they're pretty good at. But as we saw Arsenal in recent weeks, once they catch their momentum and scoring ability, it's hard to stop them, even if you have that compact game locked down like Porto at times.
Yeah, I realize, Juan Arango, that Arsenal, they weren't able to play that game because of the discipline of Porto and how Porto actually set up. And it probably leads to your point with the fact that Porto seems to be the team with the European pedigree, which means that they know how to play a particular game to get that particular result in Europe. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, they have. And they don't have to win today. That's the advantage. I mean, as minimal an advantage as they have, they don't have to win. They at least, if they get the draw, it's all good for them. That's what they might be looking for. Now, is that something that you, I mean, is it something practical? No, it's not. But as the match progresses, and if it's still 0-0, hey, we'll try and shoot for that. If we can get 1 or 2 counterattacks, which they can with the players that they're going to have, especially with Evan Nilsson up top, it's going to be important to really see how Arsenal end up maybe not getting too carried away as the match progresses, moving up too high, and then offering these opportunities for Porto to go on the counter and really give them some problems, because in the past they have done so. And keep in mind what Mariah said about that statistic. Not only were they not able to advance, but in some of those matches, return legs, they did lose. But of course, that was still when the away goals rule was implemented. So they know how to manage these types of matches. That's going to be the big task for Arsenal. To me, I guess, like I said, Arsenal are the better team on paper. But will they be able to translate that onto the pitch against a team that collectively understands what they have to do?
Liz, it's difficult to look at Porto's form and then try and form an analysis here to see what we'll expect this afternoon. But when they're hot, they're hot. They got by the defending champions in their league 5-0, Benfica it was. What did you note from that performance to say that they could prove to be a difficult opposition today?
Honestly, not too much. Reason being because the game state in that game as opposed to this one will be completely different. Benfica got a red card. Porto scored 4 of their goals after that fact. In addition to that, when you're going toe-to-toe with a rival in your league, it's going to be a much more open game as opposed to them trying to clog spaces against Arsenal. So I'm not going to take too much from their performances the past couple of weeks where they've scored 8 goals in their last 2 games, but it goes to show that they have some potency up front and they can cause a threat, and that's something for Arsenal to look out for.
Isn't there potential, though, for the game to be open today because Arsenal will be going for that goal?
Yeah, but in addition to going for the goal, you also have to note that Arsenal have one of the best rest defenses in Europe, if not the best rest defense in Europe, the best defense in Europe by all metrics as well. I noted on the SportsMax zone yesterday that Arsenal has the best non-penalty XG conceded in Europe's top 5 leagues. We have the least XG conceded per shot in the UEFA Champions League. Arsenal have yet to concede a goal at home in the Champions League, winning all 3 of their games by aggregate score of 12-0. This Arsenal team is not the same Arsenal team that you would have watched for many a year, especially you, Donald. This is a new unit. This is a team that is much more confident, much more potent going forward, and much more solid at the back. But with all of that being said, I have to say, I'm not that old. The last time I was there, I've been supporting Arsenal since I was 6. The last time I watched both of those Porto games, I saw the 5-0 victory. If you guys remember, Samir Nasri scored a lovely, lovely goal in that game. But Arsenal, the last time I saw you won a Champions League round of 16 knockout tie, I was the age of 11. We need to do better. We need to do better today. I'm expecting better today. So let's just get it done, yeah?
Let's go back to Porto, shall we? Because we spoke about the winner, and I'm sorry to disappoint Leger, because we have to speak about the winner in particular and the form that Wenderson Galeno, the Brazilian, has been in, scoring 5 goals in his last 5 matches in all competitions, but he came up with a beauty in the first leg.
Yeah, and what a moment to score. I think right here we see the goal. It's from a good distance out, but when you put that to your right foot and you curl that there, I mean, we see the keeper full stretch. This is world class, and the question is how often can a player produce this to see how world class is he? But this goal on its own is a world class goal, and I think this was a lot of players from Arsenal who were on their own half defending, but he can do this also on a fast break. So he is definitely a danger man to look out, and I think for Porto without Taremi, he has been a danger man that has been creating some good things for them.
Yeah, what do you make of the Brazilian? Juan, quickly before we get your prediction.
Well, there's a reason why the Portuguese national team also wants him, so you see it right there. But again, the Galenos, the Varelas, those types of players that you have on these Porto teams that are performing now are what eventually make the Premier League great. So it's no need to be diminishing what the Portuguese or the Spanish or the other teams, because those players are the ones that end up really nourishing the Premier League in the long run. So let's look at it from that perspective as well, because that is the reality of the issue. Without foreign players, the Premier League is Denmark, to be quite honest. and if you start looking at it from that perspective, this Porto side can cause some damage. Now, again, like I said before, Can they come through? That's going to be a hard question to answer, especially if Arsenal take a quick jump at this game and really intensify their efforts going towards goal, even get a goal in. I think it would basically be over, if you ask me. But again, this Porto side are very disciplined. They know how to close ranks. They know how to play with a low block. They also know how to play with a higher block, but also on the counterattacks. Like I already said before, Galeno, Evan Nilsson, and everybody that goes on the attack is a team that can really cause a lot of problems in transition.
All right, prediction time. I'm going to start with one because, you know, Brent ain't here.
Oh, by default then.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks for doing it alphabetically. No, I mean, seriously, I would look at Arsenal maybe 2-0.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty safe, Liz.
Arsenal 4 or 5-0.
Eric, seriously.
He has good memories about the 5-0.
He does.
No, I think, one said it right. I think Jorginho will be important to see how the game will go. And I'm afraid I've seen him at Arsenal a lot of times. Passes sideways,
Eric,
backways.
the score.
We can't all say Arsenal. We'll go for a 1-1 and Porto advance.
Really?
What?
Mariah?
No, 2-0 for Arsenal. I think based on Arsenal's form, they're going to advance.
I can't believe I'm going to be agreeing with Mariah.
Well,
Because I
me.
literally said, you know what, it's time for our break. When we return, our attention will go to our feature match. It's going to be on SportsMax 2 right here. Barcelona hosting Napoli. Stay with us. The scoreline suggests that the game was a close one, but Napoli had 5 less shots than Barcelona on goal, and the one shot they did have, they scored. Both teams will always be linked by one Diego Maradona, and it was in the stadium which bore his name where they met in the first leg.
Gundogan. Oh, well hit and well saved. That looked destined for the corner of the Napoli net. Petri and Lewandowski. Dangerous and in. Robert Lewandowski for Barcelona. Turning it back inside to Anguissa. Osimhen on the turn and puts it in the net. The flag stays down. And Victor Osimhen is back in the Napoli side and back in the goals. Gundogan. Oh, it's just wide from Gundogan. And very promising for what is to come in Catalonia in the second game.
There were missed opportunities by Barcelona in that one. They would be a little bit disappointed, one suspects, that it ended 1-1, but now they're back home. And before we go into the second leg, we would have to recap what took place in the first. And my question to you, Eric, what would we have learnt from that first leg in Naples?
That you have a champion of Spain and Italy play a very boring knockout stage match in the Champions League. No, I mean, we analysed it last time. You know, two teams are a little shaky when you look at the coaching staff, etc. And Napoli had 0 shots in the entire first half at home, which you don't really see often with this current team that they have. And I thought Barca, who has been having a shaky defence this season, did quite well on that defensive node against Napoli. So I think that's something that Barca definitely wants to build on, not just in this match, but throughout for the rest of the season, to have a little bit more defensive discipline. But I think both teams have gotten in better shape, so I expect in attack to see a little bit more quality in this match than in the first leg.
Lich, Barcelona has not gotten past this stage in the last 4 years or so. What do you think that's been down to primarily? Because obviously they've been struggling on a number of levels in recent years, but what do you think that has been down to?
A lack of quality on the field and a lack of quality tactically as well. I'm not saying
Messi.
Yeah, maybe that as well. But even when he was there, you could already see the decline coming. But I think with Barcelona, they're trying to regain an identity that has passed. Football has passed that identity. So Xavi has come in. Not that I think that Xavi is a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination, but he's trying to replicate what he did well in the 2010s, late 2000s, and that's just not how football is anymore. I think last season they had one of the best defenses in Europe, but a lot of that was down to the heroics of their goalkeeper, Ter Stegen, and then you could see once he was injured for majority of this season how their defense has crumbled. It still continued to be extremely inconsistent now that he's back. They have had a lot of injuries, but I still don't think that defense is their strong suit. Neither it is for Napoli as well. But for Barcelona, I think it's just struggling to find an identity on and off the pitch, and that's probably going to continue as Xavi is going to leave in the summer.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, Juan, if that's going to be significant there, the departure of Xavi. Yet another story of a coach who will be leaving at the end of the season, and I'm wondering if that will affect the psyche positively or negatively as the rest of the Champions League campaign continues, because this is the only trophy that I think they'll be playing for this season. Well, okay, maybe La Liga still there or thereabouts, they're out of the Copa del Rey, but this could be realistically something in their hands at the end of the season. So what do you think about his impending departure here and affecting the psyche of both himself as well as the players?
Toodles, bye. He hasn't been able to really affirm himself, and I think Leger said it best when he's trying to implement something from the 2010s, but there's one little facet of it missing because you don't have the players to pressure. Yeah, everybody remembers the tiki-taka and the movement of the ball quickly. But again, when they lose the ball, what ends up happening? They drop back. You don't have a team that was, ferociously trying to win the ball back as quickly as possible. That's one facet of Barcelona's play that is eroded in the annals of time. Also, you have a lack of leadership on the pitch. Who's the player that really goes and grabs a match by the scruff of the neck, proverbially? Maybe Ronald Araujo at best. And that's been one of the biggest problems for Barcelona. Like Leger also said, they were one of the best teams defensively, but offensively they struggled. They improved offensively this year, but also the defense diminished. So you don't have a balance in terms of this Barcelona side. That not only that, they're depending on a 16 and a 17-year-old to carry them through a La Liga campaign and maybe into a next round of a Champions League. Is that a bad thing? I mean, they're talented, but you shouldn't have so much weight and bear so many expectations on two young players when you have a player that's been a perennial Ballon d'Or winner, one that has been one of the best midfielders in the Premier League over the past decade, and many others that have been important, really not carrying their weight. So to me, that ends up being the big question mark for Barcelona.
And another name that you'd add there is a 35-year-old, Eric, in Robert Lewandowski, who would have scored in that first leg as well. Is too much expected from him? Because although he keeps producing, he's the one that has come through for them on quite a few occasions.
Yeah, and I mean, we say 35-year-old, but when Barcelona bought him from Bayern, I think Lewandowski wanted that pressure, wanted that I am going to be the top man for Barcelona. So I know the years are counting, but he's somebody who wanted that leadership, who wanted to take all those goals. So he needs to carry that weight. And I think at times he has done it decent, but there's definitely been times that Barcelona needed somebody up top to lead, and he now needs some little help, which is normal. But that, I think, where a lot has been lacking. Where now, as one say, we're looking at Yamal to really be one of the top players for Barcelona. And that is a little bit different than when we looked in Xavi's era, when you have such high-ranked players all over the pitch, and then a leader as in like Puyol behind them. So it's a new Barcelona with a new dynamic, where I think it's a little bit rough to say that Lewandowski should be making this Barcelona play better, because there's just a lot of aspects of the game that they need to improve on.
Well, as I was going on here, I remember him speaking about the psyche of the Barcelona team, and he was trying to literally shake them out of their apathy, right? And I'm not sure if the same thing that Lewandowski would have had issues with, but he hasn't quite articulated it as the former Manchester City captain. But your thoughts on that, what Gundogan had said, I think it was last season, was it? Do you think that plays a factor in the decline of Barcelona?
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of it has to come down to what Barcelona are trying to do. As I said, I don't think they have an identity right now. They're just trying to cling on to an old identity instead of moving with the times. And Gundogan said, it was earlier in the season actually, he said that moving from City, a team that is so demanding, and then coming to Barcelona, he's seeing his teammates lose, and it's like it's okay to them, nothing after the game to say, okay, we need to do better at this and that. I think that's a leader, yes, in the dressing room, but on the pitch, he can't solve all the issues in their own. Barcelona's midfield has had so many issues this season, not only personnel-wise with all of the injuries, Frenkie de Jong being out, Pedri being out for so much of the season as well, but I think also their setup has been extremely poor. One mentioned how they press. The press hasn't been good enough from the forwards, so that bleeds through to the midfield, and that always leaves a defensive midfield and their defense on an island, which has led to them conceding so many goals. And actually, over 70% of the goals they've conceded this season in all competitions have come from transitional moments. So that just goes to show a clear weakness, and I don't see it being fixed under Xavi. I don't see it being fixed even in this game. I just think that they have to try their best to control certain aspects of the pitch and see if they can get a result today.
I think Gundogan is coming out of the school of Pep Guardiola, so he'd be the first to spot if a team doesn't have passion, I suppose. Mariah is with us in studio once again, and I know that you have a few interesting facts for us, so just spill them out for us.
Yeah, you all touched on Lewandowski. Did you know that Robert Lewandowski has been involved in 18 goals in his last 12 appearances in the knockout rounds of the Champions League? He scored 12 and he assisted 6. Overall, he's now on 93 goals in the competition, behind the all-time Champions League top scorer, that's Cristiano Ronaldo, who has 140, and Lionel Messi with 129. Now, despite Napoli showing slight improvement, the numbers are worrying for the visitors, who have been eliminated on each of the previous 11 occasions. They've failed to win the first leg of a major European competition knockout tie at home. Now, the most recent example was against Barcelona in the 2019-2020 Champions League, drawing 1-1 at home before the 3-1 defeat. So, do we go with the stats, or do we lean on the small improvements seen in this Napoli team?
You know, it's an interesting question, and I am more leaning towards favouring the away team in this fixture.
Yeah.
Barcelona is a team that, if they turn on the style, and when they turn on the style, they will outperform many teams, but I just don't see them having the heart to do so. I'm not sure if Juan agrees, because Napoli, they haven't lost since Francesco Calzona took charge, and that was 48 hours before the first tie. So I'm asking you, based on your observations, what do you think he's done?
He's just been able to simplify things. And you know, one thing that I've always had as a pet peeve with coaches that come in after a team has been successful is wanting to tweak and start to reformulate things. And that's one of the biggest problems that was seen by Napoli, a team that was functioning perfectly under Luciano Spalletti. And as soon as he left and everybody else started coming in, of course, this is, mind you, this is the third coaching change Napoli's had so far this season. And that really has caused a great deal of problem. But with Calzona, you've seen a team that goes back to their roots, a team that formation-wise goes back to their roots, that now you start to see that the offensive players are slowly beginning to come into the fray. And not only that, they know that if they don't win this match, their Champions League hopes do end up diminishing a little bit. They're on the outside looking in. They're currently in Europa League territory, but they do need to understand that this is going to be their be-all and end-all, because they're basically out of Serie A. They're no longer in Coppa Italia. So this is what's left for them, just like Barcelona. Again, we can talk about mirror images of one another. This is a perfect example. So again, Napoli coming into a situation where they finally won an away match in basically 7 matches this past weekend when they beat, or the last time around when they beat Sassuolo, ends up being something that could be very positive for them, because to a certain extent the pressure is off. Everyone expects the onus to be on Barcelona, and if Napoli score first, things do get a lot uphill for Barcelona, because it's a team that does end up getting very complicated and end up opening a great deal of spaces defensively.
Eric, I figure that Javi would have been thinking a lot about the particular front three of Napoli. We're talking about Kvaratskhelia, we're talking about Osimhen, and we're talking about Politano. What do you think he's fearing in terms of how his team would set up against that front three?
I think, over the last, since Osimhen been back from last 3-4 weeks, he scored 5 goals. Kvaratskhelia has really been the man in form in the last 2 matches in their league. And I think it's crucial for Barcelona to not let Kvaratskhelia get the ball, turn, and face the opponent to really take them on. Because once he starts driving at their defense line, he's finding joy and becomes dangerous. As far as Osimhen, it's a similar story, but I would say they have to make sure that in front of the goal, that's why he cannot get the service to control the time to do something with the ball. And I think that is what Napoli is trying to get. Try to get that service for Osimhen in front of the goal, and if Barca can stop that service or make sure once it reaches there, they're tight on him and don't give him an inch, I think that it should be the way for them to nullify, especially the danger from Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia.
We've got to go to our break, and it's going to be a relatively quick one. When we return, we'll take a look at the starting lineup of both these teams as we prepare for kickoff at the top of the hour here on SportsMax 2. Stay with us. It's exciting time for us in studio as we prepare for a big one here on SportsMax 2, Barcelona hosting Napoli. And we are going to be joining our feed in just about 3 minutes or so, but we're going to show you the starting lineups of both these teams as we take a look at the 4-3-3 that has been implemented by Barcelona. And Eric, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, as we were just mentioning, the front line from Napoli is a big threat. So we're going to look at the battle between Conde and Kvaratskhelia. And then in the centre-back, we just spoke about it off-air, Kubarsi, a 17-year-old centre-back that's going to have to deal now with a top striker as Osimhen. So that's an interesting battle to see. And in the midfield, as was mentioned as well, they have some personnel problems. Christensen as a defender coming at midfield. Furman kind of fitting in there. And Yamal, that is the 16-year-old that everybody talking about right now. So some nice things to watch in this match.
They look vulnerable.
Excuse me?
Liz?
Yeah, they are vulnerable, especially at the back. They will concede. I think.
You think they'll concede today?
Yeah, I think both teams will concede. I think it's going to be a high-scoring one, but we'll get to that with the prediction, I suppose. But yeah, it's going to be very important to see how Kubarsi, Araujo, and Koundé, because they are going to be the 3 defenders that really stay back to see how they deal with the Napoli transition, especially with Kvaratskhelia down that left-hand side.
What do you make of that one?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's vulnerability there, but of course you have to get a phrase from Ronald Koeman when he says, "This is what we have, and this is what Barcelona have right now that are in the best form possible." So we'll see what ends up going, and maybe they're going to have to outscore Napoli at this stage in order to be able to advance.
Napoli themselves will have a 4-3-3 formation as well. And Eric, I'd also like to know your thoughts. We've already touched on the top 3, or the front 3 that they do have in Kvaratskhelia, Osimhen, and Politano. But yeah, obviously the 4-3-3 setup for them is their type of game.
Yeah, as I said, we look at a team that outside of Kim was the same as last year, where they played very attractive football. And really are a good unit. Lobotka is a crucial midfielder in that one. Anguissa always brings a certain power into the, not just the midfield, but into the game. But it is that midfield battle, I think, that going to make them defensively feel secure if they're able to make that compact when Barca tries to penetrate them there.
Time for predictions. Juan, what are you thinking? Scoreline.
Every time in my life, it's always been hard to root against Napoli. So I'm going to have to root for Napoli again today, 2-0.
Liz?
3-2 Napoli.
3-2 Napoli. Eric?
Well, I guess I'm the other way around today. 3-1 Barcelona.
3-1 Barcelona. Mariah?
2-0 Barcelona.
2-0 Barcelona. There you go. And with that, I'm going the opposite direction. I think Napoli will come out with a victory here, and it's probably going to be a disappointing day for the home team in that one. So remember to watch this one at the top of the hour, kickoff. But of course, we have to make some money before we join our feed, so we'll do that now. On the app, it's another big one. You don't want to miss it. Arsenal against Porto. Porto with the 1-0 advantage there, so you can enjoy both matches at your leisure on the app. But again, on SportsMax 2, it's a big one, as I said, Barcelona hosting Napoli. Stay with us.